The wind carried secrets in Olanji. They slithered through the dry grass, clung to the sides of the clay huts, and whispered along the rusted zinc rooftops. And this town where the earth bled red beneath bare feet, and the sky folded in gold at dusk, not everything was as it seemed. Behind the lullaby of crickets and the slow rhythm of pestles against mortar, shadows moved, quiet and watching. Tunde knew how to listen to the silence. He had learned young. The day his father's breath vanished in the middle of a Harmattan night, leaving behind a rusted bicycle and a journal of half-written sermons, Tunde had stopped being a boy. His mother, once the village's most skilled seamstress, wore her sorrow in silence, her fingers stiff with arthritis and her eyes dark from dreams long buried. So Tunde became the man. At 17, his hands already bore the geography of toil, blisters that hardened into calluses, nails chipped by the edge of water buckets, and woven reeds. Each day began before the sun, before the roosters, even before his youngest brother whimpered from night terrors. Water from the stream, firewood from the bush, pots molded, mats sewed, errands run, and always the quiet, always the burden. Tunde did not complain, not aloud. Complaints were for those who had choices. By day he worked, by night he wrote. In an old ledger he found behind his father's church stool, he etched its pen in poems, its longings and verses only the stars ever heard. Words filled with hunger, not of the belly, but of the soul, of things he could not touch, could not even say aloud. If I were wind, I would scatter my bones across the world just to find one soft place to land. But I am stone, still and breaking. He hid the book beneath his mattress, under woven mats and the soft snoring of his siblings. Even his mother did not know. He watched life pass from the edges of the crowd. Weddings where girls twirled in white lace. Festivals where young men beat drums with wide arms and wider hearts. He watched from doorways and from market stalls, always part of the scenery, never part of the dance. And then one day came Amara. It was not her beauty that caught his breath, though there was plenty of that. It was the sound she made. Her voice, laughing through the market, did not belong in Olanji. It was the sound of clean cities and wide roads, of life untouched by daily survival. She carried herself like someone who did not know sorrow, yet her eyes held depth, like a woman who might understand it all the same. They said she was the daughter of the new teacher, come from Lagos to civilize Olaji's crumbling classrooms. Her hair coiled like questions, her dresses flowed like secrets. She walked through the town like she was searching for something, but didn't know what. Tunde noticed long before she noticed him. She lingered in his peripheral vision, the way a song gets caught in your chest long after the music stops. She came to the market every other day, always at the same time, always pausing near his stall. One time, she asked for help lifting a bundle of firewood. He mumbled a reply and lowered his eyes. The next time, she returned with oranges and left one behind and proposed. And still, he said nothing. What could he say? She was a light he could not afford to touch. He lived in the shadows between responsibility and sacrifice. In his word, love was not a story. It was a luxury, and Tunde had no space left for luxuries. But Amara was not easily discouraged. She asked about him to the bread seller. The bread seller asked the barber. The barber whispered to the old woman who sold herbs and had seen too much of the world. And word got back to her. That boy, his heart is a fortress, but sometimes fortresses fall. One evening, the sky thick with smoke and the scent of roasted plantain, she found him alone beneath the fig tree behind the village shrine. It was a place people didn't often go, where the air had echoes and the wind moved strangely. Tunde was scribbling in his journal, unaware of her footsteps. "You never speak to me," she said. Her voice startled him. He looked up as though caught stealing. He began. But what could he say? She stepped closer. "I watch you. You know, you help everyone but yourself." He met her eyes. They were soft, not pitying, just seeing, and it terrified him. He lowered his gaze. "Your rain," he murmured. "I am dust. If I welcome you, I disappear." Amara laughed, but it was not mocking. She sat beside him. Her wrapper grazed his knee, and he forgot how to breathe. "Maybe," she said, "you are not dust. Maybe you're just waiting to bloom." Tunde didn't respond. He couldn't. The fig tree creaked above him. Somewhere nearby, a hawk screamed and was answered by silence. Amara glanced up, unsettled. She didn't know it yet, and it didn't like the way Tunde's word had just teetered. After that first meeting beneath the fig tree, the word didn't change. Not on the surface, but Tunde did. He worked as he always had, lifting, sweeping, molding, fetching. But his thoughts drifted like smoke. His hands hesitated. His gaze lingered longer on the road from the schoolhouse. Even his siblings noticed the difference, teasing him with sly smiles and nudging elbows. Amara visited him most evenings now, always just before dark, when the sky turned brute orange and the town grew quiet. They never spoke of what they were doing, never gave it a name. They simply met. Under that tree, beside the old shrine no one visited anymore, they shared books, laughter, small silences, and stolen warmth. To Tunde, it felt dangerous, but not because of love. It was the first time in years he had chosen something for himself that scared him more than anything else. But the village was not blind. People began to notice. A woman from the yam store stayed too long when Amara bought fruit near Tunde's corner. A group of men paused mid-laughter when he passed them by with water sloshing on his shoulder. Someone knocked over his pot display in the market and didn't stop to apologize. A whisper moved through the town like smoke through thatched roofs. The boy who has nothing thinks he can have her? Tunde ignored it. Tried to, but in Olanji, rumors were like red dust. They got into everything. And yet he kept meeting her until something changed. One evening, just before the sun dipped behind the hills, Amara was late. Tunde waited under the fig tree for nearly an hour. The air was heavy, unusually still. No laughter from the compound across the road. No clatter of mortar and pestle. Even the goats seemed to sense something off, bleating nervously as they passed. She didn't come. He returned the next evening. Still, no sign of her. On the third day, he went to the schoolhouse, unsure of what he'd say, only to be told the teacher, Amara's father, had fallen ill and classes were suspended. That night, he paced outside his hut long after his siblings had fallen asleep. His mother, weak from her coughing fit, called at once, asking if something was wrong. He told her no, but his hands wouldn't stop trembling. On the fourth day, he saw her. She was in the back of a black vehicle, window cracked open just enough for him to see her face. She looked different, not sick, just distant. Like someone who had walked through fire but wasn't ready to talk about it. Their eyes met for a brief second. Then the car turned sharply down a narrow path and disappeared behind the trees. No one in the village spoke of it. That was the first time he felt it. Not fear, but isolation. The kind that arrives without sound, as if the entire town had closed its door to him in quiet agreement. Later that week, his journal went missing. He searched every corner of his hut, under the bed mat, behind the water drums, between stacks of raffia mats. Gone. Only his youngest brother had seen it last, asking about the book with the birds and tears. Tunde didn't even scold him. He just sat on the floor, staring at the dust. By the weekend, there were new whispers. Someone had seen his poem. Someone had read his verses, lines meant only for her. They were quoted in the market, muttered mockingly behind hands. If I were earth, I'd bury my hunger. They didn't know the full poem, but they didn't need to. The damage was done. Then, just as quietly as she had vanished, Amara returned. She came alone. No driver, no car, just a plain wrapper, a scarf tied at her head, and eyes that looked older than a wig should make them. I'm sorry, she said beneath the fig tree. He didn't ask what for. He just nodded, as if to say, it's not all right. I'm still here. But it wasn't the same. Something had shifted between them. She had her arms tied across her chest as if protecting a secret. He didn't laugh the same way. And when he asked her if she had read the final poem, he slipped into her satchel, one he never meant anyone else to see. She only looked at him, unsure. I never got it, she said. Tunde's stomach turned. Someone else had opened that later, and whoever it was now very quiet. The days that followed were sharp and brittle, like harmattan leaves ready to snap. Tunde moved through Olanji as if walking on a floor of broken glass. Every glance felt longer, every silence heavier. The market women spoke to him less. The children who once clung to his arms now watched him from behind their mother's legs. Even his siblings, sensing a tension they couldn't name, lowered their voices when they entered the room. Amara tried to explain, but every word she offered sounded like it was rehearsed in someone else's voice. My father found the book, I think, she said once, her eyes locked on her lap. He hasn't said anything to me, but things changed after that night. He took my phone. He moved my things. Tunde swallowed hard. Did he read it all? I don't know, but someone did. That evening, he sat alone outside his hut long after the lamps had gone out in the neighboring compound. The moon was a thin, tired thing. He watched it slowly bleed silver across the clay rooftops and thought of the lines they'd mocked him with in the market. Not the full poem, just fragments. That meant someone had copied it. Someone wanted it to be heard. But why? It wasn't until the fifth night, when he took his pots to the back of the market for delivery, that the answer found him. He heard them before he saw them. Two men standing behind the bakery wall, their voices low and smug. Boy thinks because he can rhyme sorrow with tomorrow, he deserves her? A laugh, cruel and casual. You know how these gutter boys are. A little attention and they think they are kings. Tunde didn't move. He knew those voices. One belonged to Dapple, The merchant's son, well-fed and sharp-jawed, who had once asked Amara to a yam festival and was politely turned down. The other was Kenny, the butcher's nephew, loud, bored, dangerous in the way idle men in small towns could be. Tunde stepped into the light slowly. The laughter died. Their eyes widened, not in fear but in irritation, like men caught kicking a dog. Evening, Tunde said quietly. Dapper tilted his head. Evening. They said nothing else. Just let him pass. But the damage was already done. Tunde's breath burned in his chest as he walked home. Jaw tight, steps faster than usual. His thoughts raced. It wasn't just jealousy. It wasn't even just cruelty. It was control. They weren't mocking him because they hated his poetry. They were mocking him because he had dared to write it to her. Because in Olanji, a potter's son did not write love letters to the daughter of a teacher from the city. He did not sit beside her under fig trees. He did not say things like, "Let me be your earth," and expect it to matter. That journal hadn't just been taken, it had been used. And someone, maybe Dapple, maybe another, wanted to remind Tunde of his place. But Tunde was no longer sure. He wanted to stay there. The next day, Amara found him in the far end of the market, stacking woven mats for his uncle. "There's talk my father might transfer back to the city," she said quietly. Tunde froze. "Because of me?" She didn't answer. Her silence said enough. "I'll go to him," he said. Her eyes widened. Tunde no. But he was already walking. Mr. Ibi's house sat at the edge of Olanji's dusty plateau, where the land dropped away into green silence, and the air smelled less of firewood and more of distance. Tunde had never been inside. No one from his side of the village had. He knocked once. The door opened almost immediately,